It's fine.
I don't want a fire hazard.
Right now, live.
As long as it's out of the way and not a tripping hazard, we're okay.
It's live now. Yeah, you got a guy, Alex Doyler, right in front of the camera. I don't know. All right. Okay, we're good to go. We bumped it off the internet. Just got back on. The guy from the office was calling me, telling me.
Hey, Tom, I didn't get a chance to
He
speak
said,
with you yesterday.
He said, I was slouching against the wall. We can get him. You're watching the You're not wrong right now.
We need about double that here.
They were hearing us right there. They were trying to get the switch over for them.
Yeah,
I mean,
Good morning. Thank you for attending this public hearing of the New Mexico Racing Commission. I'm Ray Willis, Chairman of the Commission. Present with me are Commissioner Jayla McCullough, Jerry Cosper, Leonard Block, and Ken Carrasco. Let me introduce our Executive Director, Easy Trejo. Racing Manager Rosemary Harvey, Laura Valencia, Attorney General Tanya Maestas. One more piece of paper. And at first, we'd like to allow the Clovis Chamber of Commerce President to welcome everyone, Gail Larson.
Thank you and good morning. I am Gail Tarson. I'm the Chamber President and Local Business Owner. On behalf of Clovis, New Mexico, we welcome you all. We welcome the public that has shown up and in support of their public comment. May we all have a very successful hearing today and come out with what is going to be in the best interest of Clovis, New Mexico. Thank you and welcome to Clovis.
We will begin this morning with presentations, public comment. We'll follow this later this afternoon. Our first presentation will be about Full Coast Resorts for La Posada Racetrack.
Good morning, I'm Augusta Myers. I'm a member of the New Mexico Advisory Team who's here with Full House Resorts today. And I'd like to take a moment to thank Chairman Willis as well as the members of the New Mexico Racing Commission for the opportunity to make this presentation. This is going to be for La Posada del Llano, a destination resort that includes first and foremost a racetrack, a casino, a 4-star luxury hotel, an 18-hole golf course, and other amenities right here on the plains of eastern New Mexico. And as we were driving in yesterday, I had to remind myself how much I really love the Eastern Plains. I actually got my undergraduate degree just down the road at Portales, and I think I probably attended as many Clovis Wildcat football games as I did Greyhound games. So it's nice to be back. And one of the things that I was remarking on is that when I was in college, we used to take road trips to Lubbock to go two-stepping and have a good time. And it'd be nice to have the kind of amenities that reverse that process and bring Texans to New Mexico. But I did want to introduce you to the team to get started with our presentation. First of all, turn this the right way. From Full House Resorts, we have Mr. Dan Lee, President and Chief Executive Officer from Full House Resorts. You'll be hearing from him. Mr. Louis Fanger, Senior Vice President, Chief Financial Officer and Treasurer from Full House. Alex Stolier, Senior Vice President and Chief Development Officer. And Elaine Pedros, Vice President of Human Resources, Secretary and General Counsel. From the New Mexico Advisory Team, from the Garrity Group, we have Gail Geis, Vice President. Lucia Franco, Account Executive. From the Public and Government Relations, Mr. Raymond Sanchez, former Speaker of the House for the New Mexico State Legislature. John Ryan, former New Mexico State Senator. Michael Olguin, former New Mexico House Majority Floor Leader. And from Spectrum Gaming Group, we have Michael Pollack, the Managing Director, and Daniel Miles, the Principal. And from the La Posada Design Team, I don't know how many of you have heard of WET, but I'm sure you've seen the fountains in front of the Bellagio in Las Vegas. They're part of the design team, WET. Todd Eckenrode Origins Golf Design. SKG, that's the advertising and PR firm that you received those pretty comprehensive boxes from. And also from Canon Design, Mr. Robert Benson, the design principal who is here with us today. So at this time, I would like to introduce to you our Senior Vice President, CFO from Full House Resorts, also the Treasurer, Mr. Louis Fanger.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back from your tour. Give you a quick history of Full House Resorts. We've been around for 31 years. We were founded back in 1987, and we do have our own unique ties to the horse racing industry. You may know Alan Paulson. He's the founder of Gulfstream Jets, if you've ever heard of Gulfstream Jets. He was also one of our leaders for a while, and was the owner of Cigar, who I'm sure you're very well aware of. He was always a huge racing fan his whole life. He owned many horses throughout his lifetime. And in fact, when the Paulson family found out about our proposal, they were quite eager to let us house some of Cigar's trophies and mementos at our La Posada Casino. Full House is a publicly traded company. We're listed on the NASDAQ, ticker is FLL. Total company value is about $180 million. And we have a lot of experience developing and managing gaming resorts of all sizes and all types. Dan Lee, as an example, back when he was the head of development and the CFO for Mirage Resorts, he assembled the land for Bellagio in Las Vegas, financed it, helped open it. Alex here right next to me used to work at Penn National. They run a racetrack right here in New Mexico, as you know. I used to work at Wynn Resorts, which has casinos and resorts in Asia, Las Vegas, and soon Boston. And collectively, we worked at Pinnacle Entertainment, which we took from a small regional casino company and built it up into one of the most respected regional casino companies in the country, widely known for the quality of the assets that we built. One of the things that we are very proud of is every time we build a resort, we make sure to design it for the local environment. We've never built cookie cutter products. You'll see that today. You'll see it in the name. You'll see it in the design. You'll see it in the now famous moving grandstand. You'll see it in the menus, and we do that in part because we love being a part of the communities, and we want the community to be extremely proud of what we build. Last point I want to make on Full House really quick is we do constantly reinvest in our properties. This year alone, we've already reinvested about $11 million into our properties. It's a good thing to do, and we do it consistently and often. Quick overview of some of our properties. Silver Slipper is our property in Mississippi. It's over by New Orleans. Down at that bottom left corner there, you can see one of our recent investments. That little beach club is a beautiful pool. It sits right on the edge of a white sand beach, surrounded by a grove of palm trees. It's about a year old. We just recently opened an oyster bar at that property, in part because our neighbor is oyster fisher. Rising Star is our casino located in Indiana, nearby Cincinnati. It's about 900 slot machines, not too much bigger than what we proposed here today, about 300 rooms, very consistent with our La Posada proposal. Has an RV park, just like we proposed here, golf course, and today we just took our very first ferry boat customers to help ease access from nearby Kentucky. Grand Lodge, another property of ours. It is located up by Lake Tahoe on the North Shore. A very, very beautiful property. It's located in the Hyatt there. It's one of only 3 4-diamond hotels up in northern Nevada. This property just went through a $5 million renovation, finished up last year on the 4th of July weekend. Again, very, very special, very beautiful boutique property located in a very beautiful and pristine place. And Bronco Billy's is our Colorado property. It's about an hour away from Colorado Springs, 800 slot machines. This is what it looks like today. It is in the process of getting ready for a very big expansion and remodel. This is what it will look like. Beautiful, beautiful expansion. This will more than double the size of our company today. Very excited for that project. All of that puts us on very good, gives us a very good foundation for financing our La Posada project. Those projects or those properties together are about 140 million of revenues on a trailing basis. As a public company, very important to note that we have access to the public equity markets. We have access to the debt markets. That gives us much more flexibility than what a standalone private company would have. We have a lot of experience with Wall Street. We are very well regarded. In my recent past at Wynn Resorts, we issued $1.4 billion of bonds. At Pinnacle Entertainment, this team here collectively issued $1.6 billion of bonds, $600 million of equity. Our familiarity with Wall Street is strong, and it's what will help us finance this project. Most recently, at this company, we issued $100 million of new notes. That was led by PIMCO, one of the largest bond investors in the world. They manage $1.7 trillion of assets and have been very supportive of our company. We do intend to finance this project from the corporate level. Also a very important point. If you think about borrowing costs in general, a larger, diverse group of assets will let you borrow at rates lower than what a single property can borrow at. And if you compare that to a brand new project on its own without any assets that's starting from ground zero, significantly less than what a single greenfield project could borrow at. One more important point for you is we are an ongoing entity. We have 1,600 employees. We have a whole team of accountants. We have a whole team of HR people. We have designers. We have pages of policies, everything from responsible gaming to everything else you can think of. That's very important, and it's very different than starting from scratch and having nothing. I've done that in the past, and I did that with a previous project. It makes life significantly easier. One last point I do want to make for you is yesterday we received a letter from Barclays Capital. I have it here for you. We'll make sure you get a copy. But they submitted a letter to us for us to present to you, giving their strong support for the project, saying how confident they are in our ability to finance the project, how eager they are to work on the project. So very, very excited to kick off that process with them. Barclays Bank, you may know, is a global bank. They have 80,000 employees. They've been around for 335 years, very well regarded, and have always been a great partner of ours. So that all said, that's the quick history. Maybe the boring part, the vision is the more interesting part, and I'll bring that off.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, it's good to be back before you. It's been quite a while since I had an opportunity to appear before this Commission. Thank you for taking time from your busy schedules to be here in Clovis, and yesterday in the carrying the course, and the coursework before that. I know the time and effort you put into this is extensive, and I recognize also the fact, and been reminded of it consistently, you're here to issue a racing license and that you have authority and control over the racing industry. I know that from experience. I guess I can tell you that I've been involved in horse racing practically my entire life. I had a horse before I had a bicycle. My father, back in the 40s, late 40s, give up my age, took me to every race meet at the state fair. I learned more about horses and racing through those formative years. I loved it. He finally let me loose from the leash when I was old enough not to get lost, and I was allowed to do it myself. But I followed racing throughout my young life. I don't think I ever missed the state fair meet. I think during the time I graduated from law school, even during law school, we used to skip law school and undergraduate school to go to the races during the state fair. It was the only legalized gaming in the state of New Mexico, and people enjoyed it. And it was really exciting, and it was something that we wanted to do. I grew up with that. I went to the New Mexico legislature, of course, and in the 70s, early 70s, I met some giants in the racing industry in my mind. You know, Ozzie Reeves, Merle Palmer, Bronson Springstead, those men also were working with the industry at the time, trying to improve the breed in New Mexico. And so during the legislative process, we amended legislation to try to enhance the breeds so that people in New Mexico, from the ground up, from those who were the farriers, those who provided feed, those who took care of horses, the grooms, the jockeys, the trainers, the owners, the tracks, would all have a future in New Mexico in racing. Of course, times got tough during the time of the Depression. And then times got even tougher. 1997, the Johnson administration, when he decided to sign an Indian gaming compact without coming to the legislature. And we had to take it to court to try to get that back on track so that we could, together with the racetracks, the breeders, and the horsemen, work out a way to assure that somehow or another racing would stay alive and that these casinos wouldn't take all the gamers into their halls and leave the tracks. So we set up a system. And it was a good system so that the gaming industry, the slots, would help enhance racing in New Mexico. And of course, because of that, you had 2 new tracks. You lost 2 tracks. You lost La Mesa, as you well know. We lost Santa Fe Downs and moved to Albuquerque. But we gained 2. Up in Farmington and in Hobbs. And generally have been successful. So it was natural when Full House came to me and asked if I'd be interested in helping them get the lay of the land. And I was excited about it because I saw a new opportunity to try to revive the racing industry. And before filing, we made a concerted effort to reach out to all those affected by the racing industry. We reached out to the horsemen, we reached out to the horse breeders, we reached out to the jockey guild. We did that before we filed our application, and we went back to them after we filed our application. We wanted input to know what it was they wanted, what they needed, and what they felt would make the racing industry grow and prosper again. It was tough because they all were worried about it. What's going to happen with the 6th racetrack? Is it really going to work well? Well, you're having a feasibility study that's going to eventually tell us that. I assume that feasibility study is in the works. But what we learned, and we actually knew, and I knew it, is that the horsemen and women, breeders, trainers, all of them, what they want is a track that's run under your guidance in a way that secures the integrity of racing and provides safety for our jockeys and our horses. And so what you need to know, what we need to know, and impress on you, is that we plan on providing the greatest, well, let me put it this way. We plan to do things right relative to that track. It will be a safe track. It will be a safe place for our grooms to be able to stay with their horses during the time they're stable there. We'll provide facilities for them. This is what they wanted. We visited with John Beach from Jockey Field. And John, many of you know, I think all of you know John. He's quite a character. And he went on and told us everything that we need for jockeys. And surprisingly, he really thought seriously about what it was. And something we never think about is, well, they're lady jockeys today. What are you going to do for them when you create the quarters where jockeys are sequestered during the racing week? You know, they can't go out and run around. They have to stay in their area. So we're planning on doing something that's innovative for them. We're planning on doing something that takes care of our jockeys also. We also learned that sometimes racetracks owners don't treat those who are in the industry, the men and women who invest their money in the horses, those are the owners of the breed horses, and the breeders, with the due respect that they should have. And we feel it's very important to let them know that we're investing in them and helping them do what they need to do. We came to Clovis, various occasions. We met with civic leaders, political leaders. We invited opponents and proponents to come and talk to us about what they believed we could do, what they didn't like about it, and what they did. We got a full understanding of that. So, you know, Full House understands clearly that you're the final arbiters of whether or not you get this resolution. We are relying on the fact that you're independent and that the influences from others is not going to impress you. It's going to be what we tell you, what the three contestants for this track in this part of the state deliver for you, and what we do. Full House fully understands that responsibility is in your hands. But we also know that the racing experience needs to be innovative and enhanced. It needs to renew interest in racing, which will translate into what? Greater attendance and larger purses. And in order to do that, we've got to step outside the box. I know you're thinking we're here to regulate racing. All these other things I don't have control over. You know, hotel, water parks, things of that sort. But I'll tell you what it does do. It's going to bring people into New Mexico, new people who want to come here to game with us, to take part in this great experiment, in this innovative way that Full House is going to present to you. It'll be a new game in town. It will create greater purses in the long run, as you all know. That's generated from gaming revenue. Generally supports racing nowadays. So we need to be innovative in our approach to attract new racing for patrons. Now, I'm going to turn this over to someone who knows and has the vision about what it's going to take to do just this. And at this time, I'd like to turn this over to the CEO of Full House Materials, Clovis.
Good morning, everyone. Chairman and members of the commission. This is an aerial view of La Posada Italiana, as we've designed it. And I'm happy to be here to present chance for this. And as Raymond said, it is creative. But how did we find our way to Clovis, New Mexico? We're headquartered in Las Vegas, and I live in Las Vegas. Most of us do. But it actually started in Lake Charles. So this is a map of Texas. And about 10 years ago, we proposed a casino in Louisiana. Now, Louisiana had casinos before, and has about 15 of them. And when people went to develop them there, they principally went to New Orleans. It made sense. It's the biggest city, already had a big tourism industry. And we looked at it and said, you know, Texas doesn't have any casinos, and Houston has 6 million people. Louisiana only has 4.5, the whole state. So Houston itself has more people than the whole state of Louisiana. Maybe the best place for a casino was at the border. And we went there, and there were a couple of casinos already. They weren't very nice. They were traditional little river boats that had been designed to cruise, but they no longer cruised, and they were beat up. They were making pretty good money. And I looked at it and said, people drive about 2 hours. They need something more than just a slot machine. They need a hotel. They need a golf course. They need restaurants and swimming pool complex, something to give them more than just gambling. Las Vegas itself gives you more than just gambling. Over half the revenues in Las Vegas today are non-gambling. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But when we went there, the Port Authority of Lake Charles had a piece of land that they were promoting. And they took us to the piece of land. You could only get there by boat. It was swampy. And we got off the boat, and there was a guy standing there with a rifle because there were alligators in the swamp. And they were like prepared to show us about 300 acres into this swamp. And I said, I've actually seen enough. And thought, you don't like it? And I said, no, I looked at a map. We're 2 hours from Houston. I talked to a contractor, and they said, we can build in the swamp. Even the swimming pool has to be on piling, so otherwise it'll sink. The casino floor had to be on a boat. And I thought that's interesting because the customers don't really want it to be on a boat. And the law said it had to be capable of cruising, but it didn't actually have to cruise. So we worked with a creative architect and designed a swimming pool that was like 2 acres in size and built a boat in place with a whole series of pumps. A lot of people went out of the boat and it would start going down and pump more water into it so it stayed up. And then there was a little metal plate kind of like this that went over the crack and we carved it over. And so it was a boat. I can tell you to this day, as we sit here, there's 1,000 people in that casino who have no idea that it's a boat. The restaurants and hotels are right around it. And I still remember the Gaming Commission brought up, well, is this capable of cruising? And we had a naval architect who said, and the person who asked the question said, isn't this kind of like throwing a canoe with a spoon? And the naval architect said, if you had it all day and there's no wind, then we take it across the Calcasieu River. The Gaming Commission said, okay with us. So we built this non-river boat. And it was $370 million. It's got over 10 years now. Makes $110 million a year. It's the most successful casino in the state of Louisiana, hands down. And we went back, and later they were having a left benefit, and they had their last gaming license, and they gave it to me, just me, and my company, and we got rid of it over $500 million price, and that is the Gold Nugget in Lake Charles. I'll talk about that in a minute. But you can see on this map, Lake Charles is 2 hours from Houston. Well, Clovis is a little less than that, under 2 hours from both Amarillo and Lubbock. Now, they're not as big as Houston, but it's still a significant market. Now, the Bears that we built is 1,000 rounds. I'm proposing 1,000 rounds here, we're only proposing 300. So it has to be right-sized for what it is. And we said, this is very reminiscent of what we did on the east side of Texas. Recognize it. I know Texas law on gaming probably better than anybody in Texas. If you invest $1 billion on the border, you never understand what it is. It's in the state constitution for rigorous gaming of all type. And it can only be changed with a constitutional amendment which takes a supermajority of each house of the legislature and then a public majority of the people. A very cumbersome, unlikely process to happen. People have tried to get around it by arguing under the state lottery, that went all the way up to the Supreme Court, got knocked down. There's 2 Indian tribes that keep trying to open casinos, and they've carried it all the way up, and it keeps getting knocked down. They find some excuse to reopen anyway. There's one in El Paso, and it's operating currently. The state attorney general is in the courts trying to get it closed down, and it will eventually. So Texas is not in our lifetimes likely to legalize casino gaming. And so it's an opportunity to Mexico to try to be on the border and bring that Texas money over. And if you start looking at the geography, Clovis is pretty obviously the place to draw the most. To compare, where we were yesterday, and I was as well, hiding in the back of the room, sitting on the floor, and all the chairs are taken, is a nice town, and it's right off Interstate 40, but it's pretty far from Lubbock. And we think at this location, you will clearly draw the umbrella traffic, that's the closest umbrella, and it will also draw some traffic from Lubbock. Now, Hobbs, the principal market for Hobbs is really Odessa and Midland. Clovis is too far to affect those, but Lubbock will end up being shared by Hobbs and us. But the Clovis presentation made it sound like that's a finite market. It's not. The gaming per capita in Lubbock will climb, because then people have 2 choices. And competition's got in America. And Paul said you have 2 choices. You wake up on a Saturday, shall we go to Hobbs or shall we go to Clovis? And some people are going to decide that the lucky place continues to be Hobbs. Some people decide Clovis. But overall, the gaming out of Lubbock will rise per capita. And so in Clovis, you not only get the umbrella traffic, which today has to drive 3 hours to the travel casinos in Oklahoma, but you will also grow some of the market out of Lubbock. And frankly, I was a little surprised at this. Living in Nevada, is somewhat like New Mexico, and almost all the state lives in a handful of populated areas. Once you leave Las Vegas and Reno, there's nothing. We have like the nuclear test site, which is the size of Connecticut. Nobody lives in it, right? In this part of New Mexico, however, and certainly West Texas, there's lots of people in small towns and ranches and so on. So it kind of surprised me that Llano Estacado was 1.2 million people. And I thought, oh, gee, Amarillo's 250 to 300,000, Lubbock is 250 to 300,000. Where's the rest? And the answer is all the small towns and ranches in between. So there is quite a few people here. We have applied for a 60-day meet from the late February through May, and May is the 60 to 40 thoroughbred to quarter horses. We're very flexible on that. We want to fit in the other racetracks and what the needs are for the industry. And I'll be the first to admit, this is new to us. We've done lots of casinos, we've not done racetrack before. So we are learning, and we have a lot to learn. And if we're awarded the license, first thing we would do is go find the premier charge of racing. It's pretty obvious that it should be approximately 1 mile. Oval track, all the major tracks in America are between 1 mile and 1.25 miles. The safe and resilient track surface, that's, our experts do that. Frankly, not having done one before is a disadvantage, but also an advantage, because of a fresh group of eyes. And I've gone to the existing tracks, not only in New Mexico, but elsewhere, and the facilities that they provide for the grooms and the stables, the quality of the stables is really an embarrassment. It's reminiscent of life in a third world country, and not a good third world country. And we won't do that. And one of the things we've been researching is how do you build dormitories for these people that are clean and neat and safe and so on, when they're only used for 60 days a year. And I think the solution to that is actually the work camps that the oil industry uses. There are companies that provide these work camps that move in dormitories and cafeterias and so on and set everything up. And frankly, the best solution is if every track had to provide good accommodations, then the work camp company could have a work camp that goes from place to place with the horses. But it's quite possible to have something that's modular that we would rent for 2 months of the year, and it comes back every 2 months of the year. So we haven't completely figured out exactly how to do it, but we're not going to make the grooms live in third world places. We will do something that is right, and this is the industry. I was astounded that it takes 1,200 to 1,500 cells intend to start with 1,200, but we've left room to expand to 1,500. We know there has to be a place for the horses to quarantine when they arrive and be inspected, and all of that. We've gone and looked at the different way the barns are built, and there's different arguments on each, but we want ours to be nice and have proper ventilation and proper flooring and proper drainage and all of that. Now we get to the more creative stuff, because coming from outside, it was pretty grim to look at the industry in the last 20, 30 years. This is an industry under duress. The number of tracks that exist in America are half what it used to be. At this point, only 10% of the betting is actually done on the track. 90% is done simulcast from races sports books. And I thought, wow, what's happened? You know, some of that is competition from casinos, and some of it's probably competition from NASCAR. And once I started to really understand that horse racing is a very exciting activity, but the ways that we force people to watch it are not so exciting. And so most tracks still have long lines of betting windows, and they expect people to go up and stand in line. And yet, the more creative tracks now, and I think that this is a lot of them now, have smartphones and tablets, and you can make you bet on your iPhone or an iPad. If you go into airports that have been recently renovated, you'll now see tables with iPads on it. And you sit down, you put in your flight number of the iPad, and that says, do you want to have lunch? And you say, oh, I'll have a hamburger. You swipe your card. And somewhere in the bowels of the terminal, somebody makes a hamburger and brings it to you, right? And there's no reason we can't do the same thing at our restaurants, where you can order on the iPad and then you can make a bet on the iPad and for the race. It's existing technology, just used in a different way. And then we got looking at the slot machines, and frankly, it's really telling. If you go to, let's say, in Albuquerque, you go to the casino or the track, you can't even see the track from the casino. It's not even connected to the grandstand. And you'll go into the casino, and there's a few hundred people there playing slot machines. You go to the grandstand, it's just a handful of people in the grandstand, and it's almost become a sound stage. Like you're running the track so that you have a feed to the races sports books. Which if you think of sitcoms on television, they used to be filmed in front of a live studio audience. And then the directors decided, actually, the live studio audience isn't there. And so most sitcoms are not filmed in front of a live studio audience, right? Well, all of a sudden you start thinking of the track in that way, and part of this, let's make sure we have multiple camera angles and mixing them so we have the best feed. So if somebody's sitting in a racing sports book in Las Vegas, they want to watch our race because it's filmed the best, set up the best. But then also, why not bring this to the slot machines? Why not bring it together? So we talked to our friends at Konami, who provide the central computer that ties all our slot machines together at a couple of our properties, and they have a new generation that's coming out. And we said, can we put the race on the slot machine? So somebody's sitting in a slot machine, all of a sudden it's a little banner ad like you'll get on your phone. You get a little banner ad that somebody sent you an email or something. The banner ad would say there's a race in 5 minutes. Are you interested? If you hit yes, the betting table shows up. And then you can make your bet right on the slot machine. When you place your bet, you've already got credits in the machine, so paying for it just takes it from your credits. If you win or lose, it goes back on the machine, which is, if you change machines, you take your card, you go to the next machine, lose with you, it's like money. And then it says, okay, do you want to watch the race? It's a video on there. You just take the race feed and feed it right to the bottom. So the person can sit at the slot machine, watch the race, and when it's done, go back to playing the slot machine until the next race. That's existing technology. It's not even complicated, but it's never been done. And so we're proposing to introduce that so that you tie it together. It's not hard to imagine large numbers of people in casinos saying, oh, there's a race, let's watch the race. Let's see it happen again. Then we thought, we have a race and sports book we'll talk about in a minute, but I thought at the bar, I have a ski home in Jackson, Wyoming. There's a bar up there where the bar stools are saddles. Kind of a cheap trick, get up on the saddle at the bar, it feels good. But we can give you a set of virtual reality goggles, and you put those on, and they're tied into GoPros that are mounted on the helmets for the jockeys. Now, granted, that stream is like bouncing around. You can actually use software to calm it down. So if you bet on the fourth horse, you can get up to that bar and you can goddamn ride that fourth horse and not spill your beer, right? And again, it's existing technology used in a new way to bring the experience together. Racing sportsbook and then simulcast. It's the same thing. But a racing sportsbook is nice, like lazy boy chairs and little private stations and great big video screens. We live in Las Vegas. You go to a modern racing sportsbook in Las Vegas, it's an experience. The screens are bigger, better, high definition, and that's what we envision. Now, because of the agreements with the tribes in New Mexico, we're not allowed to have tables. So we only have slots. And so it's important for us to have a racing sportsbook that almost substitutes for the tables. So that that person who's coming over from Amarillo who wants to gamble but isn't a fan of slot machines, they will go to the racing sportsbook and use that. Now, even in Las Vegas, most of the betting is actually on the race book. The sportsbook is a relatively small part of it. But the Supreme Court just recently decided that federal law does not prohibit sportsbooks. So Mississippi is now allowing it in our casino there, and most other states are lining up. So if New Mexico does pass the enabling legislation, we would offer the sportsbook aspect of that. But if it doesn't, it will look the same and act the same, but it will all be Facebook. Then, of course, the other thing we got thinking about was the experience of actually watching it. And part of this came from two things. One is I went to the Kentucky Derby and I stood there and had a kind of a box seat trackside, and the horses were by. And it's like, that's it. And then you're running for the video monitor, right? And I started to realize that you either, that's fun because you're close to the horses, or you want to be higher up in the grandstand where you can see them in the backstretch. When I was in high school, I rode on the crew team, where you had 8 guys in the boat rowing and so on. And that's really exciting if you're in the boat, because you go a mile or two and the races are won and lost by a couple of feet. And you might be in the front, but if one horseman doesn't get his oar out cleanly, you lose. On shore, it's boring, because as the boats are coming towards you, you can't really see who's in front. When they're right in front of you, you get a snapshot. And then as they go by you, you can't really see it. But there was a book a couple years ago called Boys in the Boat. It was about the American rowing team who went to the Berlin Olympics in the 1930s. And it referenced the fact that back in those days, the intercollegiate rowing race, the Big Regatta, was held in Quincy, New York. And that New York Central had a railroad line that ran along the edge of it. And they made a special train so that people could sit on the train and watch this 4-mile-long race. I went looking for it and actually found a little video of it, of this race. If you watch here in just a second, you'll get a snippet. There's the boats lined up to start. And there's the moving grandstand. Now we're back to the boats, we'll show it again. And you can see as it's going, that's very, very exciting if you're in the boat. And also exciting if you're in the moving grandstand, because this picture is now taken from that grandstand that's moving. And then you'll see again, there's the people watching it. And I thought, wow, if they could do this 100 years ago, why can't we do that now? And so we started looking at it, and that's a modern streetcar on the upper right. Now, forget the actual look of it, that one's kind of squarish looking. But the mechanics of those cars, they'll go 50 miles an hour. They will accelerate from 0 to 30 in 100 yards because they have to. And there's a red light in the street, all of a sudden it's green, they accelerate quickly. It's an electric motor, it's like a Tesla sports car. It's a direct drive. They're quiet because they're electric. And if you take that same thing and have it more in glass, now that at the bottom is an excursion train, and you can see how the chairs are angled to look up one side. And we expect to have 4 rows set in tiers, and one side of it be glass. But again, it's existing technology. And where is it? Think of the lowest rows of the grandstand. Those are the least attractive seats at a traditional track. You're not trackside, and you're not really high enough to see the back. This would be the lowest 4 rows of the grandstand. Except once you load everybody on and close the doors, it backs up and then starts accelerating. You Because while this thing will accelerate really fast, I want to make people sick. So it's probably getting alongside the horses at like 15 miles an hour. And you know, you never know exactly when the horse is going to be released, so you have to have a driver who's watching for that. And then when the horses go, he accelerates, so by the time you're down past the grandstand, both the horses in the train are going 35 miles an hour. And when you get to the turn, the track has to be curved, it has to be banked. The airplanes bank all the time. That's how they turn. And you sit in the airplane, your train doesn't spill, it's banking and turning. You get off the freeway, those are always banked, and they're designed to bank for the speed. One of the nice things is horse races are pretty predictable in their speed. And so we just have to design this to be bank driven. Now, it'll still be thrilling, but it's not supposed to be a roller coaster. And by the way, those cars are made in Sacramento. There's a German company there, and then there's a Canadian company that builds similar ones in Montreal. And so we will go to them and say we want the chassis and mirrors of this, so we need one side to be glass, and we need it to come out looking like this. Now this is what's called a cutaway picture. One of the newspapers thought that meant it was open on the side. It's moving too fast to be open on the side. We don't want people's hair to get messed up. And so this is just to show you what it would look like. And of course, when it's coming back through the finish line, this thing's roaring through the grandstand at 35 miles an hour. So it's a little bit like if you're in the subway in New York, the express train goes through the station, and then it will coast to a stop, back up, and you can stretch their legs waiting for the next race. So we haven't figured out, do we charge for each ride? Do we charge a ticket for the evening? Do we say you have to have a bet on the horse in order to ride on it? We haven't figured all that out. But we do know this is doable, and we even know relative to a $200 million project, it's not all that expensive. It's a 1.2 mile long streetcar, and no different than the streetcars that are used in Denver and Salt Lake City and San Diego these days. Now, you know, casinos are not a commodity. There are lots of people who have developed casinos and failed. I've done 12 now, and they've all been successful. But part of it is it's better if it's more than just gaming. So by building a true destination resort, you get more customers. And that means larger purses. We also have a database. The most pertinent part of that would be Colorado. We have a casino outside Colorado Springs, so we can tap into that. But I think it's important to understand the propensity to gamble. And this is what's known as a bell curve. People say if you said what's the height of all Americans, you're a bell curve. It's a pretty common statistical concept. And if you're looking at people's propensity to gamble, there is a segment of society that will never gamble. They may have a religious reason, or maybe they have PhDs in math, or they just don't find it exciting, but they will not gamble, and there is a segment. There's another segment who are avid gamblers. They will line up to play a slot machine in the parking garage. Okay? That's actually the most profitable segment. Because you don't have to have all these other amenities. You just provide a slot machine in a Butler building, and people will line up and gamble. Now, it's also the saddest segment, because a lot of those people might gamble more than they can really afford to gamble. Most people fall in the middle. They don't really view themselves as gamblers, but maybe they're in Las Vegas for a bachelor party or a convention or something. Maybe they've gone to the racetrack because they love to watch horse races, and they think, well, you know, I'm not really a gambler, but I'm here, so I'm going to put some money on that horse, but not a lot of money. Is that a gambler or a horse racing enthusiast? Right? And so most people actually fall in that middle segment. Maybe you've finished your round of golf, and you have 2 hours before your dinner reservation, so you're going to gamble. And that's the bigger segment. It's not as profitable as the segment over on the right, but it is a bigger segment. And that's important. Now, when I looked at the race horse industry and said, you know, here's an opportunity to try to change it. I used to work for Steve Lynn for quite a few years, and when I joined him, he had just opened the garage on the Las Vegas Strip. And it's hard to understand this now, but at that time, no new casino had opened on the Strip for 20 years. And it had gotten a little stale. And it was known for cheap buffets and cheap rooms and things were a little tired, and he went and built a garage, and I helped him finance it. It didn't work for him at the time. And I still remember when he walked me through it about 3 days before it opened, and I was just blown away. You know, he had this $14 million volcano that erupted out in front. You walked in the door, and instead of having slot machines right in front of you, there was this garden with this terrarium, and on and on. The Seeking Roy show, which was all animatronic and so on. Not long after that, he hired me, and they built Treasure Island, which had the pirate battle on the front. I was the CFO and head of development at the time. And, you know, these buildings, like that Treasure Island building, is much bigger than it looks to be. It's 3,000 rooms. Now, we wanted that size, but we didn't want to look like 3,000 rooms because it makes you feel very small. So it's got 3 wings to it, but from any angle you can only see 2 wings. You'll never see the third wing. But then we also used a trick. Each of what appears to be a window is actually 4 rooms. When you walk into the guest room, half the wall, floor to ceiling, is glass. And the 2 adjoining rooms are next to each other to make it look like one big window. And the same thing with the room above it. So the shutters on those rooms are 20 feet tall. Did the same trick in Bellagio. Each of those black squares at Bellagio that look like a guest room are actually 4 guest rooms. If you set out to spend one night in each room at Bellagio, it would take you 10 years. These are really, really big hotels. Okay, and I remember when we built Treasure Island, it was $470 million, and we may have had 10. But we were a public company, and I was able to issue bonds and bank debt, issue some equity, and we pulled it together, and the Treasure Island made $100 million a year. Based on the strength of that, we went to Bellagio. Then Monte Carlo we did as a less expensive hotel that was connected to Bellagio. And today, these hotels are a majority, as I've said before, a majority of the revenues are non-gaming, and they are very strong businesses. And when business gets soft, when there's a recession or something in Las Vegas, these hotels fall in first. Okay? Because everybody has their list of hotels, where do I want to stay? And it's, you know, you may tell your travel agent to go to Travelocity and say, okay, my first choice is this, my second choice is this, my third choice is this, and your 5th choice might be the Riviera. And, you know, if you only stay at the Riviera if everything else is full. And so you want to be in the place everybody wants to stay at, and you want to provide that better experience. Well, after I left Steve Wynn, we built the Bears, and we talked about that in Lake Charles, that's in the upper left. And then the city of St. Louis was looking for somebody to develop something in downtown St. Louis to help renovate the area. So we built the Mirror Place, which has a 4 Seasons hotel and a big tall tower. And we turned the whole building into a sign. That thing that's around it is smoked glass with LED lights inside. So the whole thing lights up. It's near the St. Louis Arch, which is lit at night. The 2 of them kind of complement each other. And then in the suburbs of St. Louis, we built River City in the bottom left. Then I went back to build the Gold Nugget in Lake Charles, and that was the project that I got when it was just me. And I hired Lewis, so it was really kind of Lewis and I ran around. And we got it all. We won the local referendum, we got the license, we had the land, we had a construction contract, and then we were pulling together the financing. And all of a sudden, we're looking at 15% interest, a bunch of covenants, and borrowing $500 million. And I kept looking at all the things that could go wrong, and I didn't want to oversee something that didn't get done. But we were about to sign all the documents and go out to the races, and a big casino company called us up and offered us a big profit, and they could borrow money at 3%, and I took it. I remember my wife saying, we had young kids at home, and she was like, just get there and get 3. And so we did. Okay. Now, I will tell you with hindsight, had we not sold it, we would have made a lot more money. But we did sell it. But part of my concern in selling it was I didn't want to get halfway done and have a halfway done project. And I know lots of people have done that. So we had a development agreement with the state. You had to meet certain timelines. And when we talked to Ameristar, they said they wanted to buy it. And I said, well, you have to break ground within a month. You lose the gaming license. And they're like, a month? And I said, yeah, a month. You have to buy the company and break ground in a month. So if you're willing to do the due diligence that quickly, we have something to talk about. And they were, and they did. and it's now built like it in Lake Charles, and it's quite successful. From that experience, and that was why Lewis alluded to it, when you have an existing company, it's a whole lot easier because you have people who are being paid essentially by the casinos we already have, who are working on advancing the project in Clovis. Let me turn that over to Robert Benson, who's our chief architect.
Good morning. Imagine my surprise when I got the call from Dan saying he wanted stands to move around the track with the horses. It's been a wild ride ever since, and I will say that anytime anybody sees that in our studio, they want to get out and ride it. They want to know when it's done. So we've had a lot of fun working on it. But we also do the hard work of looking at the region, looking at the ecology and the beauty, and trying to understand that and build that into the architecture. With 1.2 million people on the Estacado and the nearby communities, we really are excited about this opportunity and really jumped at the chance. We really do research the wind. I know the wind blew over the tripod today, and I was looking at the chart, and you do have some serious wind at certain times of the year. Not a problem for us. We're also influenced by the escarpment there that you can see in the way the land works. And thought that might be interesting for the building itself. Looking at the site that you visited this morning, is positioned on the highway. It's a rather large site, 520 acres, and there's some sound, and we know we need to work with that as well, and we can. The site plan itself, as you can see in the lower right corner, that's the meadow where we can, a beautiful pasture, where we have some horses available there. And of course, if you bring your horse, you can stay put here while you're doing other things. The 18-hole golf course we talked about, the 5-mile bridle path. But the important parts are that we've got a berm and we have barriers from the road. So there's a great, fantastic impression along Highway 60, a wonderful sort of gateway that pulls you in on the entry drive. As you're winding through the property, you don't quite see everything right away. It's revealed as you turn that corner. You can see the RV park is that gray square above the meadow. That's shielded by a berm, as is the parking. The hotel is a little white piece in the middle below the track, just to the south. That is 2/3 of the way into the site. So it's 3/3 of a mile away from Route 60. So from a sound standpoint, it's quite quiet back there. And having driven all the way around the site and been on the site, you can really tell the difference. There's also a driving range attached. Being an avid golfer myself, I get frustrated when you go golfing and you can't hit a few before the round. And then, of course, very top end of the site in the northeast corner, we have the stables, and they're well positioned for easy access. The golf course does slip into the infield, which is super exciting. We talked about that. There's a little tunnel, so it's under the track and doesn't interfere with it. The horses, the bridle path does the same thing. And then we make sure, of course, that the water park and the features in the infield that make it exciting are still allow the track to do what it needs to do and make sure that it's safe and fantastic. We really did research the architecture as well, and that starts with the Taos Pueblo, 1,000 years old, fantastic adobe structure, famous Ansel Adams photographs, and of course it's a World Heritage Site. The sort of culture of the region and the way that it builds into the architecture, state capital, looked at a couple of hotel versions to see how they capture the spirit of the region between Chaco and Anasazi. And then we even looked at the Santa Fe Opera because it's a very large seating spectator venue that takes in the landscape around it. Because we are doing something rather large and it does have a grandstand. So we wanted to see how could we make something like that work with New Mexico as well. The other thing we wanted to pick up on, though, is the fantastic light and the fantastic sky. And we looked at some modern examples of Barragan and La Grada doing the same thing. So we thought when you build a hotel, very often when you build a hotel, they're big boxes with just strips of windows, relatively boring. And you're going to see this building from quite a distance. As you know, standing on one corner of the site, you can see the grass on the other corner of the site. So it's pretty flat. So we want to make sure that we're doing something that is visually interesting and exciting as the movie grandstands. So approaching it at the Port Cochere, and you can see, the entry fountain and how that operates and the balance of the project. You notice that the rooms that are facing the golf course and facing south are slightly twisted toward the sunset. And that's kind of a fantastic sort of spatial formation. In fact, the entire silhouette and massing of the architecture is sort of referencing that escarpment image that we talked about. We tried to get you on the track so that you could see both that moving grandstand on the right and the horses. You know, having watched the Kentucky Derby from the backside of the track along the rail, I can tell you as the horses go by, it's the most exciting thing ever. And we wanted to keep that going. We wanted to put you in that position on the rail all the way around. So we're not going to let the company from Sacramento take all the design credit. We want to be involved in that car as well. Inside the rooms, 300 luxury rooms. This is a design for a project in Colorado we're working with Full House on. But it's important to make sure that if we're going to draw people here from, and I think we can draw them from a lot further than Amarillo, we need to make sure when they get here the hotel rooms are fantastic and well appointed. We know exactly how to do that. And so does Full House. You know, the separate tub, the wash tub, knowing the luxurious size of the room, and the separation between the bathroom and the sleeping area, really well appointed. Everything my wife will say is, how's the spa before we book a room in a hotel? So we need to make sure we hit that point as well. Part of the trip is about doing other things and making sure that you're relaxing and getting a full, fantastic weekend out of it. There's a large swimming complex, but I'm going to let Dan take over because he really gets excited about this as well.
One of the fun things we did in Lake Charles is a lazy river that actually meanders past a bar. And so it gets popular, you can take a lap around and then get a new drink, and take a lap around and get a new drink. And then and this particular one does nothing on Lake Charles, but the particular one has this sliding back, which we tend to have. And it's all relatively low, so it does not impede the view of the backstretch. It's actually, if you're staying in the hotel, you go down to the lower level, you go through a tunnel underneath the track, and this is, a lot of this is actually a little bit below the grade of the track. And so we intend to have that. I looked at the food and beverage facilities. This picture on the left is the Oasis restaurant in Lake Travis near Austin. It's the largest outdoor restaurant in Texas. They can see 2,000 people on those patios. And people go there to watch the sunset. And it's interesting because they sit around the table with chicken wings and nachos and a pitcher of beer. And then all of a sudden, when the sun is setting, they ring a bell, everybody turns and looks at the sun, and they go back to what they're doing. And I thought, we need more of that at racetracks. We want to have a large restaurant right off the casino that has patios with awnings and umbrellas and so on, so that you can sit there eating nachos and beer and then interrupt it every 20 or 30 minutes and watch the race, and then go back to your friends sitting across from each other. So it's not only sitting in a grandstand in single file, but it's more of a communal atmosphere. Now, of course, we will also have a high-end restaurant, which is actually part of the golf clubs. The one here on the upper right is actually Four Seasons in Santa Fe. We're going to be a little more like Geronimo's in Santa Fe, featuring Mexican food. We have a cappuccino and espresso bar called Cafe Azteca. We have a fast food place called Burgers and Ribs, which has burgers and ribs. And then a large casual restaurant called La Comida, and that's the larger restaurant. By the way, the name La Posada simply means the inn. And it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek because it's obviously much more than an inn. And you can't trademark the name the inn, not even in another language. So by adding Italiano, we can give it a trademark. And so La Posada Italiano just means the inn. And probably we'll just call it La Posada. Now, there was an inside joke on that because in Lake Charles, we've got L'Auberge. Well, the history of Louisiana is a French history, not a Hispanic history like here. And so we were paying homage to the French history of Louisiana. L'Auberge means the inn in French. And to be able to trademark it, we called it L'Auberge du Lac, the inn at the lake. And here we call it the inn on the plains. And so that's where we got La Posada Italiana, recognizing the history and much of the population of this region is Hispanic. And so having a place with a Spanish name, having a restaurant called La Comida is kind of paying homage to it, but we're not trying to be Little Mexico. We're trying to have a nice resort that everybody can feel comfortable in. But of course, we will have great Mexican cuisine as well. Also paying homage to the area, we have a large bar that actually adjoins the La Comida restaurant, and there's a folding wall that I can open it up. So it's a Friday or Saturday night, in good country western man, I can open it up into a very large bar, and it's called Boot Scootin'. So it's kind of a country western line dancing sort of place. That's only one of three ways we can have entertainment. We have meeting and event space, which we'll address in a moment, that we can seat about 1,000 people for an indoor concert in. And then there is a place to have a stage in the infield, so we can use kind of all the stuff that otherwise be used to watch a horse race can be used to watch an event in the inside as well. So large meeting room space, 20,000 square feet of meeting room space, which would be probably twice the size of the main ballroom, is probably twice the size of this room. And then you'd have smaller ballrooms. This is really key. We have a 300-room hotel. How do you fill that hotel midweek and off season? It's not hard to fill it on weekends. And I'll tell you, the Clovis hotel industry does pretty well, 85 to 90% occupancy. But they have been turned down for major conventions because they don't have enough rooms and they don't have the conference facilities. And so we would be kind of the conference center, if you will. We would also help bring conferences to the existing hotels. Well, frankly, they're doing pretty well, probably don't need the help. And then you design the meeting room space so that you can set it up as a dinner, like the one on the right, but you can also set it up to have a concert on the raised stage. So the golf course, and we chose this picture to show you that you can have a golf course that doesn't use that much water. We intend to use great water, the water that we do use, but we also intend to use desert landscaping for the rough. As I mentioned, I live in Las Vegas, and that's pretty standard in Las Vegas where water is really scarce. An RV park, we just opened the 54-space RV park at our casino in Indiana, and 9% of American households now own an RV. 9%. And my guess is in the Texas Panhandle, it's even higher than that. And the people who own RVs tend to be of a higher economic status. Oftentimes they're empty nesters, very good customers for a place like this. And then the bridle paths. When we looked at it, we have this big piece of land. You need a buffer from the roads. You don't play golf right next to County Highway 12. There's going to be a buffer. It's pretty easy to put a bridle path in that buffer. And then we have a separate barn that's not in stables like racetracks have, but it's more of a post and beam barn. It looks like it might have been T. Boone Pickens' personal barn. And the intent is to have about 10 horses there, or really riding horses for down the range. Like a Texas walking horse or something, or a Tennessee walking horse. And so that people can have a lesson, they can go for a ride, and if they come to the hotel with their own horse, there are stables there that they can put the stable in. And those are the horses that would principally be in that pasture up on the road. And of course the casino itself, which is the economic engine. And in fact, if there's anything that's unique about our proposal, is we're not treating the racetrack as an afterthought. Everybody else is kind of like, we're going to lose money on the racetrack, so we'll do the minimal racetrack, and it's all about this casino. And we're actually saying, well, wait a minute, let's reinvent the racetrack to be something really unique that drives racing. There aren't very many new racetracks allowed in the country, or that even happen. And so this is a unique opportunity to try to reinvent racing. And if this moving grandstand works, other racetracks are going to be trying to figure out how to put one in. But the casino itself, we know how to do as well as anybody, and with the right machines and so on. And then I mentioned earlier a state-of-the-art racing sports book, which would be an integral part of the casino, and very important. And
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and staff. My name is Michael Pollack. I'm Managing Director of Spectrum Gaming Group. And Spectrum was founded and is managed by former gaming regulators, including myself. So we fully understand the difficult task you're facing, and we fully share your fundamental belief that holding a gaming or racing license anywhere is a privilege, not a right. And that privilege goes to those who demonstrate the good character, honesty, and integrity, and who also have developed plans that are best positioned to advance public policy. Now, we also proudly serve as Executive Director of the National Council of Legislators from Gaming States, which I want to make it crystal clear that we are not advocates for the expansion of any form of gaming, but rather we consistently advocate in favor of best practices. Now, oh, there you go. And this does cover some of the area that I wanted to address. What does best practices mean? First of all, Spectrum recognizes that the quest for best practices translates into the quest for capital investment. The greater the amount of well-planned capital investment, the greater the likelihood that a project can advance public policy on multiple levels. Capital investment in a licensed gaming or racing facility translates into a broader range of quality amenities, including entertainment, golf spas, dining, meeting space, and most notably hotel amenities. So the question is, why does that lead to the advancement of multiple policies? The existence of these amenities and the ability of management to leverage those amenities simply allows for the development of a different business model. Now, a facility with a greater range of amenities can reach more adults, both demographically and geographically, can generate greater frequency of visits, longer visits, and greater spending throughout. And those factors in turn, as you'll see in a moment, lead to greater levels of employment and generate a wider range of tax revenue, extending beyond gaming or racing revenue. Now, most notably, this is a point that I strongly need to emphasize and underscore. A facility with a greater range of non-gaming amenities will also generate more interest in gaming and racing, and will, in turn, enhance those core streams of tax revenue. That is our central point. Now, those are not unproven or unfounded theories, but have a strong basis in both experience and economic modeling. And with that, to explain in greater detail, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Daniel Miles.
Thank you, Michael. Good morning, members of the Commission. My name is Daniel Miles. I'm a PhD in public policy with a concentration in economics. I'm a principal at eConsult Solutions. We're an economic consulting firm that frequently partners with Spectrum Gaming and gaming-related studies. We have experience preparing market and economic impact studies for public and private gaming clients nationally and internationally. And we recently completed a study for the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture that in part looked at the economic impacts of agriculture in Pennsylvania, but it had a specific emphasis on what are the impacts that the horse racing industry in Pennsylvania generates on the local economy. And as has been illustrated by the speakers before me, La Posada represents a $200 million capital investment in the Clovis, Curry County, and New Mexico economy. And as I will illustrate shortly, this investment will generate ripple impacts throughout the local economy, both upfront during the construction, as well as during overtime from annual operations of the casino. And as you'll see here, this investment is 2.5 to 4 times the investment planned by the other applicants. And this will directly translate into increased economic activity as well as increased fiscal impacts for the local economy, Clovis as well as Curry County, as well as the state of New Mexico. We are tasked with analyzing the market potential of La Posada as well as the economic impacts that will be generated. And the first step in our analysis was to develop a gravity model of the local casino economy. And this is a common practice that is used in retail demand studies to help retailers decide where to locate a new store. And it's been used in the gaming industry for decades. And while the particulars of the gravity model differ from study to study, the basic foundation is that there are several factors that consider people's the demand for gaming. One is distance to the casino. All else being equal, the further away someone is, the lower the probability that he or she will make the trip to gamble at a particular casino. And the converse also applies. The closer that a person is to a casino, the more likely they will be to come and visit a casino. The other amenities out there. Generally, the better the amenities, the more attractive the casino, it will draw more people into the casino. The supply of gaming compared to the casino. The bigger the casino, the more attractive it is, the more options people have for different gaming experiences. And consumer demographics of the local economy. So what we did was we developed this gravity model, we calibrated it to the local casino market right now so that our estimates of the revenue generated from each of the casinos in the local market by our model matches the actual revenue. And what we did then was essentially add on La Posada, where it's located, where it's going to be drawing people from, and then that then allowed us to estimate how much gaming revenue will La Posada generate. And what we found was after a 3-year ramp-up period, that La Posada will generate about $125 million in gross gaming revenue, with 73% of that coming from Texas, primarily the Amarillo and Lubbock areas, with about a quarter coming from New Mexico and the remaining coming from some of the more outlying states. And one way to kind of compare casinos, performance of casinos, is to look at the daily revenue per slot machine. That lets you kind of compare apples to apples. And while our estimates of $450 of daily revenue per slot machine is higher than the kind of current casino average, there are several reasons why we think La Posada will be able to achieve that type of performance. One is the number of additional amenities that the other speakers have talked about: the golf course, the high 4-star hotel, the restaurants. And second is the quality of the facilities. As you've seen from the presentation, these are very high quality facilities. And the combination of these additional amenities and the higher quality tend to increase the number of times that people will come to visit La Posada, how much they will spend, how much time they will spend here, which translates into greater gambling spend. And casinos that are widely considered to be kind of the premium casino in the market have demonstrated the ability to have performance that far outpaces their competitors. Take, for example, the Borgata in Atlantic City. It is by far the nicest casino in Atlantic City, and it has a revenue per slot machine that is almost 50% its second place competitor. The MGM National Harbor, which is in Maryland, is again one of the nicest, most premier casinos in that market, and it generates 53% more revenue than its second place competitor. Same with the Sands Casino in Bethlehem, which is located near Allentown outside of Philadelphia. It has a revenue per slot machine that is double the second place casino in Pennsylvania. And it's also important to note that the higher quality casinos in markets that are restricted, like New Mexico, generate outsized revenue per position per day. Take, for example, the River Casino in suburban Chicago, which is restricted to 1,200 slot machines. It's one of the only casinos in the area that has a revenue per slot machine of almost $800. Similar, like was discussed in Lake Charles, Louisiana, it is in a restricted market that is close to Texas, and the 2 casinos there that are the premier casinos in the market have revenues per position per day of over $400, similar to what we're projecting here for La Posada. And as you'll see, this kind of illustrates the geographic distribution of where we expect the revenue to be coming from. And as you'll see, we expect almost 70% of the revenue will come from within a 120-minute drive to the casino, which includes Amarillo and Lubbock. And this will allow New Mexico to import money from out of the state. This will then in turn generate tax revenue for the state of New Mexico, as well as economic impacts for the local and state economy. And we estimate that during the first year of operation, La Posada will generate $105 million in revenue, but it will increase over time as the casino kind of gains its foothold in the market. And by year 5, we estimate that the casino revenue will be over $132 million per year. And then we also estimated, we used a similar approach to estimate, well, what will the handle that will be generated by the racetrack? And what we did was, we estimated the handle that was generated. We analyzed the experience of existing racetracks in the market. And the racetrack that is located in a market that is very similar to La Posada is Zia Park. And so we did, Zia Park is located in an area that is surrounded by a kind of low density population area. Yes. Oh, sir, sorry. But it's, yes, Zia Park is located in a market that is in a low population area, but is surrounded by a large feeder market similar to Clovis. So we estimated 4 sources of racing in: live on track, which is the handle that is bet on races that are actually run at La Posada. The interstate, which is the amount of money that is wagered at existing New Mexico casinos on races that will occur at La Posada. Out of state is the amount of money that is wagered by players from out of state that occurs at races at La Posada. And then the simulcast handle, which is the amount of money that is wagered by individuals at La Posada at the race book at racetracks outside of New Mexico. And we estimate that in year 3, after the full year ramp up, the track will attract approximately 115,000 attendees and will generate a total track handle of $14.2 million. This includes the on-track, the interstate, and the simulcast handle. The total handle, when you add in the out-of-state, will be $40 million per year. And our model indicates that over 80% of the pari-mutuel revenue will be coming from Texas and outside of New Mexico. And as been discussed, La Posada represents a significant investment in the economy of Clovis, Curry County, and New Mexico. And the construction and operation of the casino will generate significant economic impacts in the local and state economy. And this includes 3 types of impacts. There's the direct impacts, which are the spending that occurs for the construction by Full House and local contractors. And it also includes, during the operations, the kind of the revenue that is generated by La Posada that will then be spent in the local economy to buy goods and services. And then there's the indirect impact, which is the expenditure on goods and services needed to generate those direct impacts. After the construction period, this includes steel, concrete, drywall. And for the annual operations, it includes spending on food for the restaurants, laundry services for the hotel, and of course, feed for the racetrack. And then the third type of impact is the induced impact. These are the impacts generated by individuals spending the wages and salaries they earn from the direct and indirect impacts. Just as they're spending on food at restaurants, or they're buying a house, or shopping in the local economy. And to model the economic impacts, we developed an economic impact model with the PIN plan, which is a standard approach to estimating economic impact studies. And what we found was that due to the increased spending from La Posada, the total economic impact would be $266 million during the construction period for the local economy. It will support over 2,000 jobs during the construction period and generate almost $100 million in employee wages and salaries. And the economic impact, because of the large upfront investment Full House is making, generates economic impacts that far outpace the other projects. And same for the annual operations. We estimate that the annual operations will generate $203 million per year in economic impacts in the local economy. Support almost 2,000 jobs, 1,500 of them being directly at the resort. And generate almost $53 million in employee wages and salaries that can then be spent in the local economy. But it's more than just the economic impacts. The project also generates significant fiscal impacts. And the thing to keep in mind is that these tax revenues, since the majority of the visitors to La Posada will be coming from out of state, the majority of this tax revenue will be coming from people from out of state. So the majority of the $32 million of gaming tax revenue that we generated in year 3 will be coming from individuals from Texas that come to wager. Same with the gross receipts tax. We estimate that from year 1, the fiscal impacts of the state will range from $31 million up to $40 million in year 5. And similar for the local economy, we estimate that in addition to property tax revenue and local gross receipts and the hotel tax, that the fiscal impacts will range from about $4 million in year 1 up to $4.6 million by year 5. This is all driven by the size of the investment that is being made by Full House in the local economy. And now I'll turn it back over to Michael Pollack, who will give a case study on the theme park industry.
Very briefly, we will close our portion of the presentation by noting that experience has shown that a gaming license in New Mexico has enormous value in the marketplace. The experience of Zia Park, as Daniel indicated, is very similar in demographics to the Clovis market, has shown that the market value of gaming license in that instance exceeded the value of capital investment in that facility by a factor of more than 4 to 1. You recall when I started my presentation, I said that we are advocates for advancing best practices in public policy. So with that in mind, our analysis suggests that there should be a closer correlation between the market value of a license and the capital investment in that licensed facility. In our view, that represents a much more effective, fair deal for New Mexico and would represent more effective public policy. Thank you, and I'm going to turn over to Alex Stoliar.
Thank you, Michael. Commissioners, thank you very much for having us here. It's my honor to be here, and lucky for you, I will be the last speaker. I also want to take a moment to thank Izzy and Rosemary and the rest of the staff. Been through a lot of these types of processes, you know, kind of hurting that's done for things like this. So definitely appreciate all the efforts there as well. I'm just a supplement what Michael was saying about Seal Park. I actually spent some time with Penn National after they bought Seal Park. I can tell you that at Penn we were very happy with our $200 million investment there. And when we were looking here, you know, now with Full House, at this kind of, you know, investment, you know, the investment bankers, the gaming bankers, they're always trying to sell us different properties like this, and it's always based on, you know, how, you know, the EBITDA or the operating performance. And if something like this is going to be worth $200 million, we looked at it and we said, you know what, we'd rather spend $200 million here in Mexico and build a $200 million facility rather than, you know, just pay for that to some third party. So one more shot of Liliano, and then I want to talk quickly about our commitment to Clovis and what we'd like to do locally. So as Louis mentioned at the beginning of our presentation, we've got 5 casinos around the country from our company we've been with, we've developed in, you know, many, many states. And one thing that always stands out for us is that we pride ourselves on being an excellent corporate citizen. We feel, as Michael said, it's a privilege, not a right, to have a gaming and racing license, and we take that privilege very seriously, and we embed ourselves in the community. We work with local charities, sponsorships, everything, and we've already started to have those conversations and see plenty of opportunities to do that here in Clovis. We also like to partner with local colleges and universities, and that sort of goes on different paths. On the one hand, we have community colleges that we have here, and those are great to work with for training programs, for example, slot technicians and those types of jobs. And at the same time, with, you know, as Augusta mentioned, Eastern New Mexico, not too far away, we're going to work with them on a hospitality program because we're going to have a 300-room hotel to staff, and, you know, we'll work with them on internships and a hospitality management program. You know, it'll be very positive. One thing that we were pleasantly surprised about as we made our way around Clovis and got to know the area was the lack of hotel supply and just the outsized occupancy rates that the city is experiencing now. And there's great new hotels here, and we're staying in one of them now, but clearly what's missing in this market is a full-service, 4-star luxury hotel that we're proposing. So there's a lot of really nice, you know, 3-star limited service hotels. But because of what we're proposing, we have found, talking to the local leadership, that the other hotel operators actually support us. They don't see this as competition. And of course, we're gonna, you know, given the size and scope of our project, we're gonna create a lot of overflow, and I think we'll benefit from that as well. We also, as we were, you know, going around and talking to all the local residents, you know, one question kept coming up was like, well, that's great that you've got this, you know, horse path and the water park and everything in the spot, but do we get to use it? And so, yes, the answer, it is, on one hand, it's there for the hotel guests and for the resident, and, you know, as part of the amenities, but those non-gaming amenities will also be available to the residents of Clovis. So, you know, what we are trying to do here, it's not just a gaming resort, it's not just a game destination, but a lot of non-gaming amenities that even for somebody that has no interest in it, ever getting into the racing or gaming, this is still a place for them to go to. And most of all, we want to improve the quality of life in Clovis. In like a lot of cities, you know, they struggle to get young people to stay here, you know. And so I think by giving other opportunities, especially for those at the base, you know, and entertainment for them, you know, we can improve the quality of life and get more and more people to stay here and to come here. I want to kind of take a quick sum because Daniel did a great job of, you know, outlining all of the economic benefits, and I want to kind of highlight them in one slide, sort of the highlights of it. So the first one and most important is the racing persons. You know, a lot of what we've talked about today is obviously not, you can say it's not racing, right? We're not talking about, we're talking about a hotel, we're talking about a golf course. But what does that actually mean? At the end of the day, all of those things generate more and more gaming revenue. And there is no bigger benefit. The two biggest beneficiaries of the gaming revenue are the state through the gaming, 26% gaming tax, and the enforcement through the 20% on racing persons. So by generating more gaming revenue, we're going to be generating a lot more money for the racing persons. And you see that in 2023, our stabilized year of operations, almost $25 million a year going into the racing persons. The state is obviously going to be a huge beneficiary of this. Obviously, the 26% gaming tax I mentioned is big, but there's also the corporate income tax, personal income taxes on all the wages we'll be paying, and of course the gross receipts tax, that portion that goes to the state. And so again, in 2023, we'll use that as our base year. We're looking at about $38 million a year going to the state of New Mexico. And finally, I heard one comment, I think an offhand comment that says, well, that's great that, you know, the state and the horsemen are getting all this money, but what about, you know, what does the locals get? What does the city get? Well, the city actually gets pretty good, and the city and the county actually benefit very well from this. Most of the property taxes, as well as the local portion of the gross receipts tax, and then also the lodger's tax. With our 300-room hotel, that's going to be another $600,000 a year. So Clovis and Curry County combined will be getting about $4.3 million a year from this project. This is a large amount of money, but this is what you get when you spend $200 million, when you invest $200 million on an integrated resort for racing and gaming like we do here. And obviously it's going to create a lot of jobs as well, as Spectrum figured out, over 2,000 construction jobs during the 18 to 24 month construction period, and then almost 2,000 permanent jobs in and around the Clovis area. So to sum up, we are here requesting a racing license. That is very important to us. We understand the process. As Dan mentioned, there are other applicants that are going to come before you that definitely have more racing experience than we have. As Dan mentioned, this will be our first racetrack, and so they may have more experience, but I guarantee you that none of them are more committed and have more commitment and dedication to this than we do. Another comment, it's just struck me when I heard it yesterday at the compare proposal, was something about along the lines of, well, all racetracks are the same. And we're not the most experienced, but we disagree. We feel that we can do something with racing here to not only create a great and safe environment, like everybody wants to do, but also to give the best benefit to the horsemen, to the breeders, to the jockeys we've met with, and also to create new racing fans. Okay, so we look at it, I mean, if you're in New Jersey, right, and you're watching a simulcast, and all of a sudden you're watching a simulcast and you see this moving grandstand going by, you might be thinking of getting in your RV and taking a trip to Clovis at some point. And that's the kind of integration that we see is just going to benefit the racing experience immensely. Also, I want to hit this point hard again. Everything we have shown you today, everything we have talked about is all phase one. Now, are we going to have future phases? Oh, we hope so. We want that hotel to be sold out right away. We'll be adding more rooms. With 520 acres, we've got plenty of room to play there for future expansion. But everything we're showing you today is phase one out the door. Kind of summing up what Lewis said at the beginning, what Dan talked about, and what Michael mentioned is important. We have the expertise. We have the wherewithal. We've got the letter of interest from Barclays. We know how to do this. And it's something we don't take for granted. And so if we are selected, if we are fortunate enough to be selected for that 6th racing license, everything we've talked about, we want to memorialize this in a development agreement. Given some of the history here, nobody here wants a long, drawn-out process and everything. So we're going to have, timetables and milestones, and we're going to get this done on budget and on time. I think with that, just thank you again very much for your time, and that's it.
Thank you very much. We'll take a short break while our court reporter to rest her hands a little bit. Allow the next presenter a chance to sit up. We will start our next presentation from Clovis Racetrack at 11:15.
Hi, Morgan Burrell. I'm impressed. I was just down here. Yeah, sorry.
Far so good.
Have you ever been? So I'm not impressed by that. Our beach
I think it can
We are a little weird in Amarillo, I think.
Yes, I
Really? You win?
Right, so I don't
Yeah. Well, Dan, would you be interested in Okay. I'm sure you don't want to be tomorrow. Is it weighing you down? You do? I miss it. I was just there 2 weeks ago. You started just by saying Wait, no. Okay. Will you start just by will you start with your will you start And folks here are so excited. What's the reaction? I guess there are any times we can stop